Good morning! If you're new to this channel, hi, it's really nice to meet you. My name is Milena, and if you're a returning subscriber, well, welcome. Welcome to this session. So I have lived in the Netherlands for a total of 8 years, and that includes a few years in elementary school, a few years in high school, and then also these years in university. And I always run into people who are new to the country and who still quite haven't figured out how to use public transport. And I think that a big reason why public transport is a little bit daunting in your first couple of years in the Netherlands is because there are a few terms that you aren't really taught anywhere that make it a little bit hard to understand how it all works. And so, today I wanted to break it down into 20 terms that you should know when you're coming to the Netherlands or you are in the Netherlands that is going to make taking public transport so much easier. So the first term is halte. And halte means stop, as in like a bus stop or a train stop. If you are in Rotterdam, let's say, what you might hear when you're in the train is something like volgende halte, Kralingse Zone. So volgende means next, and so that's also a term you should probably know. Halte means stop, and then obviously they'll add the stop name at the end. Number 3, instappen. And instappen means boarding or to get on. And that also brings us to number 4, which is uitstappen, which means to get off. So then you know if you're getting on or getting off a train, and sometimes they say that through the intercom, so that's good to know. Overstappen means to change trains, or when you need to get off a train to get into another train. And so what you might see in maybe like some travel advice is overstappen bij Zwolle. So that means you need to take another train in Zwolle. And number 6, you have richting. And richting means direction. This one is really important to know because what you might see is that your travel advice tells you take the train richting Zwolle, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going all the way to Zwolle. No, you're taking that train that goes towards Zwolle and your stop might be somewhere in between. This one's a very important one to know because I've met a lot of people who come up to me and they're like, hey, I need to get off on this station, but none of the trains say the station. And that's usually because they don't list all the stops that the train will be taking on, the boards and such, but they will say which richting they're going towards. And that's usually what you have to use as a reference when you're figuring out which train to take. Number 7, you have vertrek. Vertrek means departure. And so vertrektijd means departure time. And so if you have something that says vertrektijd 8 uur, then you know that the train is leaving at 8 o'clock. On that note, you should also know the 8th word, which is aankomst. And aankomst means arrival. And so you also have the same thing as vertrek and vertrektijd. You have aankomst and aankomsttijd. So that's arrival time. Number 9 is the basic word vervoer. Vervoer means transportation. And then openbare vervoer means public transportation. If you've watched my other video about things that you should know when coming to the Netherlands, then you know that I've mentioned the OV chip card quite often. And so the OV chip card is your openbare vervoer card, which is your public transportation card. And well, if you want to hear more about that one, I recommend you to go to that one. But let's move on. So 10, 11, 12, and 13 are the different types of transportation or vervoer that you could be taking in the Netherlands. Number 10 would be de bus, so that's the bus. 11, de trein, which is the train. Number 12 is the metro, which is the subway. So the subway is the one that goes underground. And number 13 would be the tram, which is like the streetcar. I always get those confused and my friends think it's so irritating that I always say train for everything. Because train is the really like speedy one. And I always say train for everything. So I say like, oh, I took the train to the city. And they're like, Milena, you did not take the train to the city. You took a streetcar. And I'm like, train. I took the train. I'm not sure if streetcar is like the right translation for the tram, but the tram is basically just like the slow train that stays above ground. Yes, that's what we're going with. Now that I'm thinking about it, you should probably also know the boat, which is, you might have guessed it, the boat, because in the Netherlands you sometimes have some boat taxis. Number 14 is vertraging. Vertraging means delay. Also, if you were to see something like a 5-minute vertraging, then you know that it's a 5-minute delay. In the Netherlands, you also have different types of trains. You have the intercity and the sprinter. And so the intercity, it goes basically to like the biggest stops. So you say like maybe Utrecht, for sure Amsterdam, Rotterdam and such. If you're taking the Sprinter, then it has much more stops in that trip. So basically it just takes longer to get to wherever you want to go, if where you want to go is a big city. If you have the choice to choose between the Intercity or a Sprinter, do take the Intercity because it's just much faster and it avoids the extra stops that you don't want to. You don't want to participate in the stops. So don't. For number 17, you have Eerste and Tweede Klas. And so Eerste Klas and Tweede Klas means first class and second class. And those are the different sections in a train that you can take. So in the first class, it's obviously a little fancier. I think the seats are usually red, slightly cleaner. And then in the second class, you have just the regular seats. Next word is perron, and perron means platform. And so what you might see in your travel advice is something along the lines, perron 5. So then you know that where you have to go is platform 5. And those are usually quite clear in the station that you're in. They have really big signs. But that's important to know, and that's usually what they say in like apps like 9292. Following that one, we have the word reis. And reis means trip. So reistijd means trip time, or how long the whole trip is going to take. Next word is geldig. And geldig is valid. Let's say, for example, you got a ticket and it says something like geldig tot, and then the date, and then you know that it is valid until that date. And so I know that I said I'll do 20 words, but to be honest, there are so many more that I think you guys should know. So I'm gonna say two more. Yeah. Just a little taste of what more there is to come of Dutch transport words, which is now apparently my niche of YouTube. So another word is gordel, and gordel means seatbelt. The last word that I want to talk to you guys about is laat, and laat means late. Yeah, I think those are all the words that I'd like to talk to you guys about today. Of course, there are so many others, but I do think these cover most of them. And so I hope now that you know these words, there's a smaller chance of you getting lost in the Netherlands. So thank you for joining me today, and subscribe if you want more content like this. But until then, take care, wash your hands, social distance, bye!